Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to the Comedy Review, the show that comes back more that Sergio Perez because the last time he did that was in a goddamn Alpine. What's that famous Star Wars quote again? Oh yeah, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. It's also the show where we talk about things that happen in motorsport. Things like this. Naomi Schiff plays with Yuki Tsunoda's balls, V-Carb play with Isaac Hadjar's balls, and no one plays with Craig Slater's balls, but he's still able to come out with this.
We're getting a bit wet here.
All that to come, but we start here. The big news of the week circulated around Liam Lawson, otherwise known as Lawson, or Josh Revel's wet dream, or useless sack of shit. Following 2 weekends where the Kiwi was so bad he made people actually feel sorry for Sergio Perez, Red Bull took the drastic decision to demote their driver in favour of Yuki Tsunoda, who is apparently now the genuine article despite being passed up on by a rookie just a few months ago. Cue Red Bull doing their absolute best to dodge these criticisms once WhatsApp man stuck his head out of his dungeon to see if the coast was clear. According to him, this was more about Liam and protecting his mental health. Helmut Marko, meanwhile, was harnessing his high-level dementia to accuse Adrian Newey of all people for barring Tsunoda's initial signing. At least be reminded by the man's wife that he'd actually been consigned to gardening leave by this stage, the world-class designer probably too busy aerodynamically optimising his lawnmower to give enough of a shit about Red Bull's latest weekly cock-up. No matter which way you look at it, the decision was no doubt a harsh one that has likely ruined Lawson's Formula One career. I mean, just look at Pierre Gasly. He managed to win in a Minardi, and even then, the only people that want him are apparently the French. Red Bull tried to bed in their reshuffled lineup by means of a show run around the Straits of Tokyo, though it appears Liam managed to find even this a little bit difficult. Still could be worse, Hadjar broke the front wing. With all eyes on the outfit coming into this weekend's Japanese Grand Prix then, they did their best to camouflage him with the racing balls, debuting a one-off white colour scheme to mark the end of their partnership with engine supplier Honda. Again. They weren't the only ones with new looks coming into this one, Haas covering their VF25 with cherry blossoms to make it all the more beautiful when Ollie Bearman it into a wall, and Stake marking April Fool's Day with a Stake car, which took some convincing given this is very much something we'd expect them to do. With all my beat your meat material as useful as, well, Liam Lawson, let's move on to some brighter news. V10s are back. Oh, never mind, because Audi seemed dead set on becoming the second most hated thing to have come out of Germany. I was very glad to not stay out for first practice, because quite frankly, it was f***ing boring. With several outfits going for a Japanese theme only a few years away from being labelled as cultural appropriation, Alpine took it one step further, placing its Japanese driver, Ryo Hirakawa, in the car for FP1. The rookie, still hopeful for a full-time drive at the age of 103, had a respectable showing, outpacing Pierre Gasly on his way to 12th at the end of the hour, perhaps even a performance that could place increased pressure on Jack Doohan. Gee, I hope he doesn't do anything stupid later. Both Williams cars were making headlines as well, Carlos momentarily dreaming of his Ferrari days as he missed his pit box, and Albon momentarily dreaming of his Red Bull days when he drove straight into the gravel. Kimi Antonelli was another to be stoned, while at the top of the order was the familiar hue of papaya, Lando Norris ending the session fastest despite some hairy moments at points, which as it turned out was just the Britain on a qualifying run. Jack Doohan was back in the car for FP2, and after a mixed start to the season really needed to turn things around. Unfortunately, he did this rather literally at turn 1. The Aussie had forgotten to close his DRS at the end of the pit straight, thankfully not a problem he'll have to deal with for long, since the mechanism has been scrapped for 2026. Doohan's also 2 races away from becoming a simulator driver, so I guess there's that too. Regardless, the heavy shunt paused proceedings, which I guess means it's time to roll out this again.
I destroyed the car!
It took a fair while for air crash investigators to remove Doohan from the Turn 1 barriers, and when we finally went green, we couldn't enjoy that privilege for very long. Fernando Alonso living up to his rookie status by beaching his Aston Martin at the Degners in apparently a strange incident according to the Spaniard, as if it was usually fine to put a wheel on the grass over there. So, as he bumped this motorcyclist, we're gonna get sick of this in a minute, aren't we? We tried to get going again, though it appeared Mercedes wanted the rest of the afternoon off when they sent Russell out alongside bestie Max Verstappen. Thankfully they survived long enough for the McLarens to put in session-topping times once again, only for us to get yet another red flag when the circuit decided it was time to spontaneously combust. Just remember you wanted this back. I genuinely don't know what is wrong with you all. Oh, for fuck... These grass fires were beginning to become a problem, being caused by the sparks emitted out of the car's skid blocks and the Suzuka circuit being about as dry as your mum. Sky Sports was still quick to take advantage, deploying everyone's favourite pit lane prick Jacques Villeneuve in the hope that someone might break free of the stands and turn him into Anakin f***ing Skywalker. The marshals, meanwhile, were spotted doing their best to improve the situation, filling whatever they could find to dampen the grass and prevent further delays. This included anything from buckets to traffic cones to whatever the this is, to FIA President Ben Sulayem's vacant skull. With practice either being boring or pointless so far, it was time for Saturday morning to maybe turn it all around. And once again, it was Lando Norris on top in the McLaren. George Russell had been quietly building up a challenge, however, topping the time for the majority of the session. Much to the dismay of old teammate Lewis Hamilton, Ferrari this week apparently reworked their simulator model for the SF25, and I'm not making this up, came to the riveting conclusion that the car performs better when on a lighter fuel load and when lower to the ground, which is a bit like saying when I kick a baby in the face, he's likely to end up like this. Ben Sulayem's head wasn't enough to quench the flames surrounding the Suzuka circuit in FP3, it seems. 2 more red flags disrupting the final practice session in Japan. I'm not playing the music this time, let's be honest, it's stuck in your heads already. Alpine, meanwhile, had made the brave call to send Doohan out again, and he at least kept it out of the wall this time, though still flirted with the gravel on the exit of Degner 2. That corner caused problems for several of the drivers, FP2 pace hitter Piastri going off, only for teammate Lando Norris to go one better in his McLaren. Carlos Sainz was another to almost find the wall, contacting the team to ask if this was the wind or the car's fault, the team being as polite as they could when they replied to say he was just shit. Another person to find excuses was Gabriel Bortoleto, who, when touching up the grass, blamed his tyres for this orgasm going through 130. Yeah, thanks for helping me finish that one, Gabby. Quote tweets. We haven't really covered them on this series yet, but after I saw this thing appear on my timeline, and after I'd shot myself in the f***ing head, I couldn't resist. For any visually impaired viewers, well, viewers probably isn't the right word, but this image appears to depict Franco Colapinto and Lewis Hamilton scissoring, if that's what the kids call it these days. Double Chan 69 here has limited the replies to only the similarly f***ed in their head, but that doesn't protect the post from quote tweets, so here are my personal favourites. This is mental illness of the highest order. Account deactivation needed. Cancer as an image. This is f***ing disgusting. Never do it again. No. Big thank you to the renowned Bellend hunter Andrew for bringing this to my attention, and if you want to nominate the next ex-Bellend of the week, use the hashtag on screen, tag me on the platform, or join the Discord server. Now, let's get on as quick as we can and get to qualifying. Oh look, how to unleash the beast and grow your hammer. I should probably be concerned this is coming up on my feed, shouldn't I? Since we're talking about cocks, poor Isaac Hadjar was running into problems in Q1 when his V-carb decided it wanted some French sausage for itself. The rookie thus had to set a lap while his genitals were slowly turned into tagliatelle, only to return to the garage for what looked like the most painful hand job of his life. All the more impressive then that he managed to make history and by the end of qualifying became the first woman to get into Q3. Over at the main team, Yuki Tsunoda had looked a lot better than his predecessors over the course of the weekend, well, ignoring his P18 and FP2 anyway, and it looked like Red Bull's decision had finally paid off when the Japanese got the second car into Q2 for the first time all season. Having apparently done enough at this stage, the 22 car opted to call it a day and line up 15th, just behind Lawson and his new Racing Bulls machine. So I guess wins all round then. Or maybe they're just both shit, who knows. On the subject of shit, Aston Martin, and with no Red Bull to save his graces, Lance Stroll returned to his rightful place of P20 in qualifying, a hard-fought spot won over Alpine's Jack Doohan, whose miserable weekend continued as the Aussie came home 19th. Williams' Carlos Sainz could have done with a better weekend after a notably slow start to his 2025 campaign. Unfortunately, it was another Q2 exit for the Spaniard, who topped it off by holding up #blessing the Ferrari and thus received a 3-place grid drop for Sunday. Teammate Frorbom, meanwhile, would make it into Q3, and joining him was the house of Ollie Behrman, much to the surprise of, well, everybody quite frankly, especially given this guy was down in 18th. Does anyone remember what his name was, by the way? At the very top of the order, it still seemed to be the McLaren show, Piastri looking to have the early edge in Q1 before Norris brought things back in a big way come the second session. Questions swarmed the pit lane then over who would have the lap time when it mattered in Q3, only for Max Verstappen to turn up and take his apparent double chin upgrade to pole position. And fair play, this lap was something special. With that then, I guess all we have left to cover is the Grand Prix itself, and with the potential of rain in the air, this could be a fun one. Now what do you mean I missed another fire? Sunday morning did bring that aforementioned rain, leaving the track surface as greasy as a teenage shooter's hair. That was potentially great news for Lando Norris, who now had an excuse to have a bad start, though given the circumstances, I actually think he got off the line fairly well, tucking in behind Verstappen, who held the lead in the short run down to turn 1. No one would make any positions in the opening stages, which as it would turn out, would pretty much sum this one up. Gasly and Alonso gave us some early action, the Spaniard fending off the Alpine into 130R in what's F1's universal speak for, don't you f***ing dare mate. We got some actual overtakes further back, as Bortoletto dropped like a stone, Sainz rediscovered his brake pedal, and Lawson had his Lawson moment, allowing Tsunoda down the inside of Spoon. And there was action in the top 10 as well, Hamilton making his way past the RB of Hadjar, and you know what, in the first 6 laps, that's quite a lot of passing, maybe we're in for a good race. Oh, never mind, the highlights have just jumped to the pit stops. It would be just the one-stop strategy this afternoon, which falls neatly into the starter pack for Grand Prix, though after the race leaders pitted together and Verstappen had a slow stop, everything hanged in the balance. Then Norris decided to warm his tyres up on the grass for some reason. With the bottle on full display then, it was time to head over to the Talking Bollocks Championship. Lando trying to claim he was pushed wide, yet even this was usurped by Verstappen, who tried to argue that Norris had turned off his pit limiter too quickly. Not that it mattered, the Dutchman was now sailing off into the distance. Further back, Ollie Behrman was doing a good job in the Haas, the Brits are remaining in the top 10, though nearly threw that all the way with this kamikaze attempt on Carlos Sainz, and I've just realised this probably isn't the best place to do that joke, but it, I'm leaving it in. With no further action happening out on track, we return to the leading trio. Piastri was in third now and looked to have the most potential, hounding Lando for P2 on the road. At this point, it seemed pretty clear to swap the two papaya cars, though Norris was adamant he was just saving his tyres in the hope that he could mount a challenge at the end. That challenge ended up being about as convincing as RPM on the phone to HMRC, the McLaren getting just outside of DRS range before the bottle forced the 4 car to drop another 4 tenths and let Verstappen cruise to victory. I think your enjoyment of the Japanese Grand Prix very much depended on your mindset going into it. If you wanted close racing and a nail-biting finish, then yeah, it was f***ing shit. On the other hand, if you'd just woken up in the early hours of the morning, it was utterly fantastic, as now you could just go back to sleep again. The overall weekend had its moments, and qualifying in particular was fun to watch, but I'm giving this race a 2 out of 10, and even saying that now, I think that's quite generous. It's not because I'm British and just hate Verstappen, it's because there was one place swap in the top 8 over the entirety of that one. We should give some shout outs still though, and Ollie Behrman's got to be up there for tracking more points out of that Haas. Props to Alonso for actually finishing for once, and to Yuki Tsunoda, who like Antonelli last week got driver of the day for being absolutely nowhere. Jury's still out on that one, and we'll give him time, but at least Lawson looks less suicidal now he's at Racing Bulls. Oh, actually, never mind. Let me know what you thought of the race down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed, then you can leave a like and a sub as well. Since we're on the subject of plugs, I dropped a new episode of Talk Shift this week, and if you want to find out how we get from Formula 1 to the heights of the Teletubbies, you can head down to the link in the description below. Drop the new channel a sub while you're at it. Patrons and channel members get the additional outtakes of that episode, and I'm putting together an exclusive video later this week as well. If that sounds interesting and you'd like to support me in the channel, links are also down below. Now, I'm off to grow my hammer, so till next week, f*** off.